Rules for design on 3D printers. 3D printers have limitations and your designs have to take this into account. We're not talking about a Star Trek replicator here. FDM and resin printers have subtle differences, so I have broken them down into their own parts. FDM. Rule 1 of FDM is no part should be less than 0.8mm in the XY axis. In the Z axis, this should be no smaller than 0.12, but I would recommend not making a part this small as it's probably going to break. This means you can rotate thin parts to get them to print. This might not be a good workaround. At less than 0.8mm, parts are very delicate. This will make it very difficult to remove support materials without breaking the part, and you'll need a perfectly level bed to get it to work. This is a limitation due to how FDM works, as most FDM printers use 0.4mm nozzles, and to form a part, a nozzle needs to move at least the length of the nozzle. The 0.12mm in the Z axis does vary with slicer settings. My slicer is set to 0.12 layer heights, as this is the minimum the stepper motors in my Ender 3 will move up. Rule 2. Parts should have a flat side to be used as the bottom when printing. This is to reduce the amount of support material required. The interface layer between support material and parts will always leave a mark and require filling and sanding. If this cannot be avoided, then have any detailed parts separate, as this will help with sanding a smooth surface. Rule 3. Where possible, all features should be facing upwards or be at least 45 degrees off the horizontal. This is to reduce support material, as 45 degrees is about the maximum most printers can manage on overhangs. If a part is greater than 45 degrees, then you may wish to consider splitting it off. Rule 4. Check clearances on your printers and make sure you give all parts an offset of this to make sure that they fit together. For my printers, I normally use 0.2, but you could probably get away with 0.1 depending on settings. Resin. Rule 1 of resin printing is parts should not be smaller than 0.2mm in any direction. You can make parts down to 0.1 sometimes, but the problem is that they don't normally survive cleaning and will warp during curing. If you're making parts as thin as 0.1 or 0.2mm, you may wish to consider alternatives such as photoetch. Photoetch is made out of brass, a soft metal, but even a soft metal is much more durable than any resin coming out of a printer. I use PPD Limited for my photoetch, as I tend to order in bulk. However, you can make photoetch yourself, and I have included links below. I have not tried any of these methods, as they involved a lot of chemicals that I have not got to hand. Detail on surfaces that are less than 0.2 will be obliterated by bleed through. Rule 2. One face of your model should be hidden once assembled and be as featureless as possible. This is because the underside of your model is where you will have your supports. Any protrusions will have to have additional supports, adding to the amount of cleanup. Rule 3. Clearances should be 0.2mm for all parts. Your printer might vary depending on circumstances, but this is the general consent of the community. Rule 4. When slicing your model, make sure there's a hole at the bottom edge of your print when hollowed. This is to reduce suction on your part. Remember, liquid is incompressible. When the part lifts, if there's no drainage hole, it's going to pull a vacuum. Vacuum is one of the biggest problems for parts. When printing, the resin is still soft and flexible. If there's too much force applied, it will distort. Temperature will also affect this, so a heated build chamber will help. Rule 5. Make sure there is multiple holes on your part to allow for drainage. Air needs to get in to allow the IPA to get out, it will not pull a vacuum. Make sure all cavities have a drain hole, and make sure you have drain holes at either end where possible, as this will help. An example is a gun barrel. If it's a closed end, the resin will pool at the bottom of the gun barrel and you'll be unable to move it. This is due to the surface tension of the resin and its viscosity. An alternative is to make the barrel a separate part. Open at both ends. This will allow you to poke a cleaning rod through it to clean out any stuck resin. This is all best practice, and some rules can be broken if you know why the rules are there. However, if your model keeps breaking these rules, then you may wish to consider alternatives, such as photoetch or breaking your parts up into smaller pieces. Thank you for watching.